Why do I think a bird is more beautiful than a worm? It might seem like a silly question to ask, on the surface, of course. Birds have multiple colors, plumage. Their song is so beautiful. They fly effortlessly across the sky and seem infinitely more beautiful than a slimy brown worm mucking around in the dirt. Well, as I started to think about nurturing beauty, which is our worship theme this month, I started to really wonder how and possibly why we think some things are beautiful and others are not. Is it purely cultural? Is it only about external characteristics? Of course, I wonder, what is the impact of what we choose to define as beautiful on our psyches, on our social lives, on our spiritual and ethical journeys? Let me show you a few images. Now these are random images I pulled from Google. I put like beautiful in Google, and these are some of the images that pop up. Do you think they're beautiful? Do you think this one's beautiful? The next question is why? Why do you think this picture is beautiful? Let me bring up another one. Bring up the next slide, if you would. How about this one? Do you think this is beautiful? And again, why do you think this is beautiful? Now the last one. What about this picture? How many know what that is? Ah, I know what that is. That is a, oh wait a minute, I'm going to forget. Bleeding heart, that's right. I became exposed to it while I was up north and was just enamored with it. You know, it's curious to me what is considered beautiful and how much it can vary from one of us to the next. Martha and I, my lovely wife, who unfortunately gets preached about from time to time up here, watches television with me in the evenings. We watch mostly streaming shows and movies. And as we watch, Martha might say, "Wow, that person is beautiful," or "That place is amazing," or that is maybe a particularly emotional scene is beautiful. And most often I say something like, "I don't see that." Or, "Yeah, you know, that person, the place, or scene, it's okay." Or, "It doesn't do much for me." Whether we're talking about the shape of a person's nose or the curvature of their cheeks, or the expanse of a prairie, or the ruins of an ancient civilization, or a love scene between two people who've been trying to come together the whole movie, it's okay. As Martha is moved to tears sitting next to me by the beauty. I don't know if you've had an experience like that, where you were with someone who was so moved and you were like, oh, it's okay, you know? But it happens to me all the time. You know, as I wrote the title for this sermon, I said, you know, why do I think birds are more beautiful than worms? I got to this point in the sermon and I was like, you know, well, maybe I should have said it was something different. Maybe I should have called the sermon, "Why do I think worms are more beautiful than birds?" You see, when I was very young, I found black racer snakes and alligator snapping turtles and worms. Really beautiful and interesting. Fun to watch. I don't think my mom, who's here actually, or any other mom for that matter, understood a young boy's obsession with things dirty and slimy and dangerous. I don't remember as a young boy looking at flowers or even birds or even girls for that matter as being beautiful. Perhaps this was part of being raised in a culture that had very defined ideas of what ought to be masculine and feminine areas of interest. In our white supremacist culture, beauty, as stereotypes go, is often associated with a certain feminine stereotype. Two of the definitions, and I was looking up definitions of beauty, one in the Microsoft Bing dictionary, was denoting something intended to make a woman more attractive or a beautiful woman. Women are judged by their beauty, accused of using their beauty, even scapegoated because of their beauty. And what is considered beautiful for women in this culture is a moving target. What is considered beautiful one day is considered dull, drab, or repulsive tomorrow. Thus, plastic surgeons make a fortune in our culture. I worked as a director of an outpatient and inpatient eating disorder clinic for years. I've seen what this obsession with beauty has done to women's psyches, how it has destroyed their health, their relationships, and occasionally led to their death. One of my very close friends, she was a psychiatrist, died of the complications of an acid peel to her face. From the complications, she got an infection and it just eventually killed her. She was getting this acid peel because she wanted to erase the wrinkles from aging. She was obsessed with it. She wanted to be young again. That's the message we get, isn't it, from our culture? I have to say, when I consider beauty, I'm aware I have been taught by our culture to default to a woman's beauty. But instead, what has happened over time for me is I have begun to associate beauty more with the intangible quality of love. When I think of beautiful, the people I love come to mind and to heart. Those are the most beautiful people. How do you define beauty? What comes to your mind? What images, what thoughts come to your mind when you think about beauty? Knowing what you consider beautiful and what you think about that beauty can impact how you treat yourself, how you treat others, how you treat your body, can influence how you buy and what medical procedures you choose. Wikipedia says, beauty is commonly described as a feature of objects that make these objects pleasurable to perceive, such as objects like landscapes or sunsets or humans or works of art. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary gives this definition: the quality present in a thing or person that gives intense pleasure or deep satisfaction to the mind, whether arising from sensory manifestations, shape, color, texture, sound, or a meaningful design or pattern, or something else, such as a personality in which high spiritual qualities manifest. So what happens? What happens when you think outside the box about beauty? Instead of this external, visual, beautiful woman, you think outside the box of what beauty could be. You heard physicist Richard Feynman say, "I see much more about the flower than my artist friend sees." I could imagine the cells in there, the complicated actions inside, which also have beauty. I mean, it's not just beauty at this dimension, at 1 centimeter. There's also beauty at smaller dimensions. The inner structures, also the processes. The fact that the colors in the flower evolved in order to attract insects to pollinate is interesting. It means that insects can see color. And it adds a question. Does this aesthetic sense also exist in lower forms of life? All kinds of interesting questions in which the science knowledge only adds to the excitement, the mystery, the awe of the flower. It only adds. I don't understand how it subtracts. Feynman has a very different understanding of beauty, not just the external aspects of it. I hear him connecting beauty with what is interesting, fascinating, mysterious, even smaller dimensions, inner structures and processes, qualities that in and of themselves are not visible to the naked eye except as part of the resultant whole. These characteristics and the questions they elicit, well, they add to the beauty. You may not think of the worm itself as beautiful, but think of what it does. It enriches the soil, it aerates the soil, it provides optimum growing conditions for plants. The worm can be thought of as a type of inner structure, a small dimension or process, a critical component that has to happen in order for there to be beautiful flowers, or vegetables, or trees. The visible beauty that we bask in. Give thanks to the worms that you don't see as they contribute their part to the whole. Another aspect of beauty that I've recently developed is a deeper appreciation of works of art, mostly abstract or modern art, because it makes me wonder. If you don't know what I'm talking about, abstract art is the kind of art that emphasizes the use of non-representational forms to create meaning in reality. Meaning that it doesn't necessarily represent objects in the physical environment, like suns or trees or people. It could be just an image, big white wall, a banana taped to a wall. I find most beautiful pictures are those that evoke something emotional or spiritual, pieces that I have to step back from and look at a few times to let sink in. What is the artist trying to portray? What is the artist expecting me to see? What is the history of this art? Or what is the cultural or social context of this art? how do my life experiences impact what I perceive from the art? Or impact how I understand the art? Often, when I'm walking through a modern art museum and I see something, I think of it as kind of a koan, a Zen Buddhist koan. You know, and what I mean is that it causes me to step out of my logical, rational mind and into a more intuitive, insightful, enlightened inner self. And sometimes when I see a piece of art, it really affects me. I feel like I'm connected to something larger than myself. I want to offer a piece of art. Now, I saw this at the Rebel, which is, if you haven't been to the Rebel, there's an advertisement for it. Take a look at this. Notice what it touches in you, if anything, or what maybe stirs in you. Does it give you some kind of rational or logical meaning that you can take away from it? Or does some deeper self make a different kind of meaning of this experience of this piece? Examine, what you will, what might be the gap between your rational understanding or explanation of this piece and your ineffable experience of this piece. And see what's there. I ask you after this service to talk about beauty a little bit as you eat hot dogs and hamburgers and play games. I'm sure you'll have a little time when you might talk about this piece. And I'll tell you a little bit about it as well, if you like, what the artist was portraying and thinking. And so I wonder what beauty I might nurture. The beauty of the external world, I think there's value in that. Creating art, growing flowers, keeping beautiful natural places available to people. But I also know the danger in beauty, external beauty, particularly for women with bulimia and anorexia, and women being harassed, raped, objectified, monetized. And I wonder about the beauty in the unseen world, like scientific discoveries of quantum physics and string theory and microscopic organisms, or little organisms under the earth, like worms. The philosopher Plato said, "Beauty is in the eye of the beholder." My friends, nurturing beauty is also about understanding yourself, about recognizing what our white supremacist society and our negative life experiences may still do to influence us as we try to define beauty. But we still have choices. We can recognize those times when what we consider to be beautiful might, in fact, be destructive to us or someone else. For instance, like obsession with looking young. We might recognize those times when what we consider to be beautiful might perpetuate binary gender stereotypes or racial stereotypes. We might recognize those times when we consider beautiful and see it, may be superficial. ultimately, emotionally, and spiritually unsatisfying. You know, now that I think about it, I probably should have named this sermon, "Why Do I Think Both Worms and Birds Are Beautiful?" My friends, as you leave here today, what I ask you to consider about beauty and nurturing beauty is this: explore, consider, reflect on, learn, go deeper. External beauty is fine, but remember that it is also a superficial quality. A sunrise might be beautiful, but what happens when that sunrise is more than just the image on your eye? What if it touches something deeper? What if you consider the mystery and wonder in how the sunrise came to be? What if you open yourself up to the universe that the sunrise is part of? What if you let the sunrise be your own anti-intellectual koan, moving you to possible insight, intuition, or enlightenment? Beauty can be so much more than it is the image on your eye. But only if we open ourselves to what it might offer.